I wouldn't be the most opposed protecting Christy Wallace instead of protecting KK Timpson. I just don't see that much of a future with KK. But we know they're protecting KK. We know they're protecting KK. And you want to know why? Because they put KK on everything. So it is very, very obvious who the Fever are going to protect. In the current set of rules, the Fever, if the Fever want to guarantee they keep any player next year, sorry, not even guarantee to keep any player next year, guarantee they have the rights to keep any player next year.
The Indiana Fever's expansion draft protection decisions are about as straightforward as it gets, and any front office that fumbles this deserves to be shown the door immediately. The one slightly controversial take worth noting up front, Christy Wallace on a minimum deal isn't the worst idea in the world. She was terrible as a starter, sure, but she knocked down 40% of her threes the season before and averaged 17.5 points last year. As a bench piece on a 2-year minimum, she's not completely worthless, and there's a case, however thin, for choosing her over KK Timpson. That said, the Fever will protect KK. She's on the merchandise.
Keep any player next year. Guarantee they have the rights to keep any player next year, because every single player other than Caitlin Clark and KK Timpson, they have to offer a better, bigger contract to in order to keep. That being said, other than those players, every single other player is on the chopping block. So even like a Natasha Howard, who was exempt from the last expansion draft, look, neither of these expansion teams are offering her Supermax, so it doesn't matter if they protect her. I don't think the Indiana Fever are going to keep her because I think she's going to get... I actually think a team is going to pay Natasha Howard about 800, 900k. It's just not going to...
That tells you everything. Under the current rules, every player outside of Caitlin Clark and KK Timpson needs to be offered a larger contract just to retain their rights. That makes virtually the entire roster fair game. Even Natasha Howard, who was shielded from the last expansion draft, doesn't need protecting here. Neither expansion team is handing her a Supermax. She'll probably land somewhere around $800K minus $900K, just not in Indiana. Her impact outside of the Commissioner Cup final was essentially identical to what Alyssa Smith provides, and the Fever were so desperate to move on from Smith that they surrendered a first-round pick to get rid of her.
Okay, it's just not going to be the Fever. She literally just did an Alyssa Smith things. Like, her impact outside of the Commissioner's Cup final was an equivalent of Alyssa Smith's impact. And the Fever, and Alyssa Smith was so bad, the Fever had to give up a first-round pick to get rid of her. Despite the fact that somehow she stunk it up in Dallas and they got a first-round pick for her. That is how much the Fever wanted to get rid of Alyssa Smith. They had to pay to get rid of her. That being said, let's go through the players. Kelsey Mitchell.
That's how toxic that situation became. Kelsey Mitchell is non-negotiable. Either Indiana cores her and she signs a Supermax extension, which locks her to the Fever since Supermax deals cannot be signed and traded, or they sell at peak value. Both paths make sense. There's genuine merit to each side of that argument. Either way, she isn't walking for nothing.
Kelsey Mitchell, keep, core, no matter what. So we will see what the story is with Kelsey Mitchell. If Kelsey Mitchell gets cored and signs a Supermax extension, she will be playing. For cored and signed a Supermax, she will be playing for the Indiana Fever. You are only eligible to sign the Supermax with a team you are currently at. You cannot sign a Supermax and trade. You cannot sign and trade a Supermax. You cannot core and trade a Supermax. If Kelsey Mitchell gets cored by the Indiana Fever,
Odyssey Sims doesn't need protection. The only scenario where the Fever lose her is if she gets Supermax money, and that isn't happening. Ari McDonald on a Supermax would be a fireable decision, plain and simple. Bree Hall has a marginally more logical case than McDonald, but still no. Shaw Petty, no. Natasha Howard, absolutely not.
Gets cored by the Indiana Fever. She could still be traded. But the second Kelsey Mitchell puts pen to paper on a Supermax deal, she is going to be a member of the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever are not going to let Kelsey Mitchell walk for nothing. She's either going to command they're either selling at her highest point, or they're running it back. Neither are bad options. Honestly, neither are bad options. That both make sense. And regardless of what way you think, I actually think there's merit to both options. Odyssey Sims, they're not protecting Odyssey Sims. Why? If they wanted to keep Odyssey Sims, the only way that they can
Aaliyah Boston, obviously yes. Sophie Cunningham, this one needs to be said clearly. Protecting her is pointless. Here's why. If Sophie Cunningham wants to go to Toronto or Portland, she's going there regardless. The expansion draft doesn't change that.
The only way that they can the only way they would guarantee to lose Odyssey Sims is if she gets paid the Supermax. Ari McDowell is not getting paid the Supermax. If they protect Ari McDowell, fire the front office on the spot. Bree Hall, ironically, there's more logic to protecting Bree Hall than Ari McDonald, but no. Shea Petty, no. Natasha Howard, if they protect Natasha Howard, fire them on the spot. Aaliyah, obviously. Sophie Cunningham, don't. Like, just don't be dumb, Indiana. Don't be dumb. So, if the Fever...
What's the point of protecting her and then not having the cap space to match a $1.2 million offer from a team willing to core and sign her? That's the exact Tiffany Hayes situation the Las Vegas Aces walked into. They protected Hayes over Kate Martin, a productive, cheap, multi-year asset coming off a rookie deal, and both players ended up with the Valkyries anyway. Hayes got a max offer from Golden State and took it. Protecting her accomplished nothing except losing Martin for free.
If the Fever are going to lose, I mean this when I say this, if the Fever are going to lose Sophie Cunningham in the expansion draft, they're going to lose her anyway. Like, it is what it is. And they are going to lose, they're going to lose her anyway. So basically, if what you call it, if Sophie Cunningham was, if, like, let's say she wants to go to Toronto. Probably not, but let's...
Sophie Cunningham is the new Tiffany Hayes in this scenario. If a team wants her badly enough to core and sign her, she's gone no matter what. Protect Lexi Hull to preserve draft rights. Let Dantis walk. Let Bree Turner walk.
If, like, let's say she wants to go to Toronto. Probably not, but let's say she wants to go to Toronto or Portland. And the Fever protect her. She's still going to go to Toronto or Portland. If she wants to go to one of these places, she's gone. Like, if Sophie Cunningham wants to play for an expansion franchise, she's gone. If she doesn't want to play for an expansion franchise, she's staying. Let's be completely real. She is staying. Because there are going to be super...
KK Timpson on a minimum for 3 more years is the floor, and even if she never develops, some team will see enough upside to send back a second-round pick because the potential is real and her contract doesn't become protected until year 4. She's a tradable asset at worst. Caitlin Clark, obviously protected. Ariel Perez, no. Colson, no.
And then there's a wrong way to officiate a women's basketball game. But whatever the case may be, that really strokes my mind is maybe the WNBA itself want the physicality. Maybe they want players to get missed calls. I don't know, but me personally, it throws off the taste of the game. Going way back to the WNBA finals with the Minnesota Lynx versus the New York Liberty, there was a time in those finals where you could see Cheryl Reeve clearly about to lose her job, clearly about to lose her cool. We all remember that whole...
Chloe Bibby is an interesting wrinkle. The Fever hold her reserve free agency rights and she'll play on a minimum. There's also a reasonable argument that she was mishandled under the previous coaching staff. She was playing excellent defense, got targeted by Dallas 4 straight possessions and held them to 1 basket, and still got pulled from the rotation and never returned. A smarter argument could be made for protecting Bibby over Timpson, honestly. The obvious 4 protections are the same core from last year's run.
Cheryl Reeve clearly about to lose her job, clearly about to lose her cool. We all remember that whole situation. Do we want another one of those situations? One person that is infamous for going at WNBA referees is Caitlin Clark herself. Caitlin Clark has been time and time again kind of jawing at referees, even to the point where she almost got suspended during her rookie season for talking smack to WNBA referees. And to me, don't look like they have a systematic plan. But the last time we heard about the WNBA making some type of decision with...
Beyond that, Bibby is probably the one Fever player the expansion teams actually take, followed by a Seattle-type situation where nobody else is worth selecting. Realistically, these 2 expansion franchises are walking away with 6 or 7 players each, and most of the league still doesn't understand that because of how many unrestricted free agents are floating around, teams simply won't want the majority of available players. The 2025 expansion draft pool is going to have legitimate talent in it, though. Looking across recent all-star rosters, players likely available include Brittany Sykes, Natasha Cloud, possibly Satu, possibly Diggins, Kayla Thornton, Courtney Williams, potentially Gabby Williams, Brittany Griner, Dana Bonner, Jonquil Jones, Arike Ogumbawale, possibly Chelsea Gray, Erica McCall, and Tiffany Hayes herself, the same Hayes who left Las Vegas for a max deal. Why would either expansion team burn a supermax slot on Sophie Cunningham when names like those are sitting in the pool?
With these referees was in this article right here. Let's check it out. It stated WNBA referees announces on league's officiating problem. Now, this was back in July, right before Caitlin Clark got hurt. Now, I'm here to tell you, we really haven't heard too much about them actually addressing the problem. Now, they did back in November release an article pretty much stating that they don't believe that the refereeing basically went towards injuries when we all seen.
The expansion draft has a way of looking dramatic on paper and delivering mostly unfamiliar names in reality. Last year, a significant portion of the players actually selected were overseas stashes that casual fans had never seen. Teams protect their rookies, nobody wants the veterans on bad contracts, and the expansion rosters end up built primarily through free agency anyway. The draft itself is almost a footnote, but the protection decisions still matter because getting them wrong signals exactly the kind of organizational dysfunction that holds franchises back. The 2026 WNBA season hasn't even tipped off yet, and there's already a serious cloud hanging over everything the officiating.
Basically went towards injuries when we all seen how the refereeing could possibly go towards injuries, but that's neither here or there. Let's check this out. WNBA announces decision on league's officiating problem officially appeared on the Spun, right? So the WNBA has been facing severe officiating criticism throughout the 2025 season, not just that specific season, throughout the entirety that Caitlin Clark has been there, that I've been watching these WNBA games. The refereeing has been a problem. But I'll tell you,
ever since Caitlin Clark entered the league, the whistle situation has been one of the loudest complaints from fans across the board. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert appears set to continue leading the league, but what's been noticeably absent from any recent CBA talks is any real blueprint for cleaning up how games get called. The WNBA has gone on record multiple times, suggesting the officiating isn't the disaster many believe it to be. But then the FIFA Women's Basketball World Cup happened, and it showed the world exactly how a women's basketball game can be run cleanly and professionally. The contrast was hard to ignore.
Watching these WNBA games, the refereeing has been a problem. But I'll tell you one thing. One of the main problems I've seen the WNBA refereeing being an issue for the Indiana Fever was during that Las Vegas Aces series. During that Las Vegas Aces series, I don't know, but before that series, it looked like they might have fished the whistle for the Fever themselves as a basketball club. But as we got deeper into the playoffs and as we seen officiating kind of shifting games, the Fever was getting less calls than other teams.
One theory
getting less calls than other teams. They looked like they might have turned this whole thing around. But during that Aces series, man, we started seeing A'ja Wilson whistle get on steroids, bro. She was getting every call. You sneeze wrong, look at her wrong, foul, foul, foul. It had got so bad that Aaliyah Boston fouled out of that final game. So bad. She erupted when she fouled out. This has to be solved.
Back in July 2025, just before Clark went down with her injury, The Spun published a piece titled WNBA Announces Decision on League's Officiating Problem. It got some attention at the time, but not much actually changed in the months that followed. By November, league sources were pushing back on the idea that poor officiating contributed to the wave of injuries that hit the league during the season. According to ESPN, WNBA referee operations reviewed data from throughout the year and concluded that claims linking missed calls to player injuries were not supported by the numbers, even as those same sources acknowledged that missed calls were continuation. Reaching record levels, the Indiana Fever's postseason run against the Las Vegas Aces put the problem on full display. Early in that series, the whistle had looked somewhat balanced, but as the games got more intense, A'ja Wilson was drawing fouls at an almost untouchable rate.
So bad. She erupted when she fouled out. This has to be solved. I feel like a lot of people are just talking about this. If they fix this WNBA referee and issues, we'll have a more fluid league. The league will be more entertaining. It'll be more honest to watch. But as of right now, before we even get into the season, y'all, I'm going to be tracking this refereeing thing, and we're going to monitor these referees throughout the entirety of this season. I'm calling this project Refereeing on Notice, bro. For the whole 2026 season, I just want to see, man.
Any contact near her, however minimal, was getting called. The situation escalated to the point where Aaliyah Boston fouled out of the deciding game and left the floor visibly furious. Moments like that shift the outcome of entire series, and they don't get forgotten. Meanwhile, the World Cup served as a kind of proof of concept. Across that entire tournament, player-referee confrontations were rare.
Season. I just want to see, man, because something I noticed during the FIFA World Cup basketball is that there is definitely a systematic way to to referee a women's basketball game. We didn't see players erupting on referees. Maybe once or twice you will see Caitlin Clark trolling a ref here and there, but overall the game was pretty solid. So solid that we reacted to it after the tournament. No one really said anything negative about the referees, but we can go on record time in and time out to speak.
Clark had a few moments of light banter with officials, but nothing that crossed a line. Nobody walked away from that event talking about bad officiating, which almost never happens when the WNBA regular season or playoffs come up. What makes the current situation more frustrating is that players seemingly didn't push hard enough on the officiating issue during CBA negotiations. The WNBA Players Association had leverage during those talks, and the referee accountability question was left largely untouched. The league's position remains that there's no structural problem,